All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Lamed Maseches Yoma. Ready? They're almost 30 blot in. So we left off the two dots, 3 lines from the bottom on Chav Tesam and Beis. The quote from the Mishnah says, Zeh klal haya b'mikdash. So this is one of the rules in the Mikdash. So it says over there, a person, if he's meiraglayim, if he urinates, right, then he has to do kidesh yadayim raglayim, wash his hands and his feet. If he goes number 2, if he defecates, then he has to do a tevilah. So Zak the Gemara Zaklal Mikdash, that was the rule. So 2 lines in the bottom, Bishlam Raglayim Mishum Nitzotzos. I understand because of why he has to go ahead and wash his feet, because when let's say he urinates, because then perhaps there's it splashes and it gets upon his feet and there he has to wash it off. Ela Yadai in my time, but why does he have to go ahead and wash his hands? So Amar Rabbi Abba, so says Rabbi Abba Zaysemeris, this must be mitzvah, top the page, l'shavshei. Right, it's a mitzvah to go ahead and to wipe away any sort of droplets that are there from the meiraglayim. They are there from the urine. Basically, he has to wipe off the droplets from his legs, right? And therefore, by touching any droplets with his hands, therefore he has to go ahead and wash his hands. And the Saile, Rabbi Yami, is a proof for Rabbi Yami. Dama Rabbi Yami. Also, the Adam Shiatza B'Nitzaz Shal Gabi Rak. L'Pnei Shnira Krushevcha. Matila Zal Bonav Shehed Mamzer. It's also for a person to go ahead and have droplets upon his feet, right? Because then it looks like a person does not have a straight stream, and therefore that's what caused the droplets to go all over the place. And therefore, if the person is unable to go ahead and urinate in a stream, perhaps then he's also unable to have children. And if he's unable to have children, like a kurshif, a person who has a damaged member, right? So such a person, right, would not be able to reproduce. So if he's not able to reproduce, how does he have children, right? So then he'll basically spread. People will start talking about that his children are not really his children, and perhaps they have different fathers than their father and their mother.
You think of other excuses, like 0 to 60.
You're right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're not wrong. 4 lines to the top. So if you have tzoya b'mkaima in its place, a person has tzoa, he has feces, fecal matter. B'mkaima, we'll soon define where that is in its place. Asr to say kriya shema. So eat 4 lines to the top of Lamed Amud Aleph. So he says, if it's seen, that's obvious because there's a halacha that if you can't go ahead and read Kriya Shema or learn Torah, right, in the presence of feces. And and if it's covered, ladies, then what does the Torah expect, right? If it's inside him, he has fecal matter inside him, but you can't see it. So what does the Torah want from us, right? We're not angels, right? We're humans, right? That's part of human nature. You eat, you got to go to the bathroom. Like tzricha the yoshev v'nireis aimei v'nireis, right? If he's standing, it cannot be seen, right? But if he's sitting down, then it could be seen. So it's like halfway out. Umayshna mitzaya al-bsara. What's the difference between that and to have fecal matter upon his flesh? Could be itamar. It was taught tzaya al-bsara osha yadav b'beis hakiseh, if there was so upon his flesh. Or he inserted his hands inside a basic kisa, inside a bathroom, right? In the old days, right? The bathrooms, those presented much more issues of shaila, of saying Torah around them, right? Didn't flush away. So one goes ahead and inserts his hands inside the basic kisa. Rav Huna Omar Mutter. Rav Huna says is mutter, based upon the pasuk of Kol Nishmat Halakha, right? That the person, as long as his mouth, right, is able to go ahead and say it, then he's able to go ahead and read Torah. So therefore, in such a case, according to Rav Huna, it would be mutter if it's al b'saro, or basically as long as his mouth is clean, right? And therefore is able to go ahead and mutter in such a case. And Rav Chizda says, Aser, so mutter goes Krishna. Rav Chizda Aser goes Krishna. He says Aser. Why? Because he brings a pasuk from Tehillim, of kol atzmoisai tarona, right? That basically anything that you go, all your limbs have to be clean. All your limbs have to be clean. So one basically says none of your limbs, right? Just your mouth is clean, right? And the other one says that your nose and mouth are clean. And then this one says any limb. But so that's the machlokas between Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. So how does that stem with Rav Papa Shita here? So Amar Asr likas kresha. So he says so b'kaima nafish zuma. So we say this. No. It's different. If it's bimkaima, i.e., in a case of a person, right? If it's still in the area that it comes out, that was the case around Papa. So if it's bimkaima, in other words, where he was able to basically stand, you don't see it, and sit, you can see it, right? Then there's nafish zuma. Then there's a lot of smell, right? Then there is you can go ahead and it's more present, and therefore that's the reason of Rav Papa. And then even on that, right? Even that Rav Chizda and Rav Huna would agree. And Shalom Kaima, but if it's another area, then there is basically it's not apparent, and that would be the machlokas between Rav Chizda and Rav Huna. Basically, if it's on another body part, that's not close between them. But if it's in Kaima, then Rav Papa, everyone would agree with him because then you can smell it more. Then it's more present. Tana Rabbanim, Halcha Besuda. Adam yaitze lahashtin halacha b'suda is a halacha when it comes to suda, right? Adam yaitze lahashtin mayim noitel yodo achas v'nichas. Person is in a meal and he goes out to go to the bathroom lahashtin mayim to urinate. So all he has to do is wash his one hand that was used to wipe off any droplets. V'nichnas, and he can come back to the meal. So dibrim chavero, right? However, if he was going ahead and he was basically when he left, he comes back. And he was talking to his friend, the heatflake, and therefore it took a long time. Basically, he took his mind off his meal. He wasn't careful where his hands went. Then he has to go wash both hands because it basically creates some sort of hesach hadas, some sort of lapse of awareness, and therefore he has to go ahead and wash both hands when he comes back to the meal. Yeah, I mean, I would go to the brachas, but that's what it would be, right? Person goes to the halach is a person goes to the bathroom, if I'm not mistaken, in the middle of a meal, right? He defecates in the middle of a meal. He has to go ahead and do the Netilas Yadayim again if he's going to have bread. With the bracha. Right. So I'm almost positive. Yeah.
This is what the Gemara is talking about.
It's right. That's similar situation. Right. Right.
Well, this is why your Rebbe is here.
You don't have to make hamotzi again. You have to make. Because halach is when it comes to.
Have you ever done it?
He doesn't go to the
I'm usually not in that situation.
Right. And says the Gemara, and he goes wash his hands. By the way, don't wash on the outside of the yik and then come and then enter because people won't realize that you wash your hands. Rather go ahead, sit down in your place, and then basically wash your hands at your seat, and then pass the pitcher of water to the other people in case they need the water. So in other words, basically wash in place and don't wash in the other because people will not be aware. And Amar Rav Chizda, Amar El Lishtais, we're only talking about if he wants to go ahead and let's say drink water. Aval Echol, if he wants to go ahead and if he's going to be eating, now you tell me b'chutz, then he can go wash it outside v'nichnas and then enter. Why? Because people know that a person's going to go ahead if he's drinking, he's not really touching the food, so therefore they might not realize he's going to wash his hands. But however, if he's going to go ahead and eat, then people know that since he just went ahead and urinate and perhaps he washed off droplets with his hands, right? Then when he comes back, now in this case, by the way, we're not talking about making the bracha on Netilas Yadayim because over here we're just talking about that he's washing off, that he's not necessarily eating the other breads and he only urinated. Right. So, but if he comes back is to eat food, then people know he washes his hands. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Avada, right? Everyone knows that even if he went to go back to drink, he was very particular, and therefore he obviously would have washed his hands even re-entering. So therefore, he doesn't really have to wash at the table. He could even wash outside because people who are Easterners, people are very particular. Then everyone knows that they wash their hands. Fine. Naya Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Ein adam nichnas le'azar le'avoda afilu tahor ad sheitro." A person should not enter into the azara for the avoda, even if he's tahor, until he goes ahead and is tovel. And chamesh tfilos be'asara kedushin tovel kohen gadol mekadesh b'yom. There are 5 tefillos 5 times the kohen gadol goes ahead and goes into the mikvah on Yom Kippurim, and 10 times he's Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, and he washes his hands and feet, and on Yom Kippurim. The Kulon, all right, now is basically with each change will come, as we'll see later on, is a taivel and a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. The Kulam, the Kadesh, the Kiddush al Beis Parva, Chutz Mizu Bilvad. And so he said, and all of them were done in the Mikdash, right? And on the top of the Beis Parva. Those of you who have the art scroll, right? There's a picture right near the ramp of the Mizbeach, right? There was a couple of off at Lichkos there. You actually see there the little blue water there. I assume that's the blue water, right? Represents the area where they were toivel, right? And it was on the roof of in number 27, right? Those who have the art scroll, right? So over there, that was the area where they went, except for the first one. The first tefillah was not done over here already inside the Azara. That was one that was done before. And then parsu sudden shel boots bein levenam, and then there was a sheet that was basically held up to a linen sheet that was held up basically to separate for a privacy wall for the Kohen Gadol between him and the people. Fine. Zak the Gemara. Skip the parentheses. Shalu es ben zayma tefillah zu lama. Why? What was the necessity of the first tefillah? The first tefillah was coming if he wasn't done over there in the Lishka. What was the necessity of it? So he answered. Ma mishana mikodesh lekodesh makom shanash kares lemakom shanash kares toin tefillah. In a case when he's going back and forth between the Kodesh Kodashim and the Kodesh, and he's changing his clothes, and we have a requirement that he has to go ahead and be toivel, and even though he's in a place where a person enters, if he would enter, he'd be chayiv kares, so he's not tamei, and nevertheless we require him to go ahead and be toivel, right, in those areas, even though he's going basically between Kodesh to Kodesh, right? So, so then he argues. So if a person's coming from a mundane place, right, a place outside, and he enters into the Azara, right? If he's coming from a place that does not have a punishment of kares if he's tamei, to a place of where it is punishable by kares if he's tamei, right? Isn't it obvious he has to be toivel? He should be toivel because he's going to a makom kedusha. So that's the limud. So according to Ben Zuba, it's a mamash kal v'chaymer as to midoraisa, right? That one really has to go ahead and be toivel before. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer sarach tvila hizu kadesh yizkor tuma yishana shabiyada v'yifrosh. Right? No, this is only basically like a ceremonial tvila. Basically, one that he should basically realize that he's going to an area of kedusha and not make sure he wasn't, tamei, and be aware that I have to go to the mikvah in the morning. I got to make sure, I'm not going to be tamei. Therefore, a person will basically be more careful when it comes to tumah. So that was Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda basically said it's like a hint to remind myself by tumah, as opposed to Ben Zuma says mamash achiyuv. So by kamifli, what's the machlokes over here? So turn the page. So my answer is be'achule avoda kamifli, right? Basically, they're saying whether they can ruin the avoda if one doesn't do the first tefillah and then he starts performing the avoda, doesn't ruin or not. The Ben Zuma machil avoda. According to Ben Zuma, he has profaned the avoda. In other words, it doesn't work. But why? Because he learned it from a kal v'chaymer, and therefore there was an obligation to go ahead and do it. And the Rabbi Yehuda like machil avoda. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no obligation. Therefore, basically, it's only a ceremonial one, and therefore the avoda should be okay. According to Zuma, is it no good? If a Kohen Gadol went ahead and he wasn't toivel, right, between changing clothes or between avodas sakashera, his avoda is okay, right? It's not essential for the avoda, right? We see that even though he's supposed to go to the mikveh before each avoda, if he doesn't do it, if he skips a dip, right, then it's okay. And echad kohen gadol, v'echad kohen hanyot, or whether kohen gadol or kohen hanyot, kidesh yadav raglav shachris, v'avad avoda, right? But if he never washed the entire day, right, the entire morning, and then he performs the avoda, then his avoda is like psu. Then his avoda is no good. But we see even though there's an obligation to wash in between, to be toivel in between, it's not ma'akev. It doesn't ruin it. Ella lamikabase. So rather, you're right. Maybe even he holds that if he doesn't do it, as long as he was tahor, the vote is okay. Rather, maybe we'll create it to create an asay kamiflagi. The Ben Zuma could be asay. According to Ben Zuma, there's an asay. He has an obligation to go ahead and do it. But the Rabbi Yehuda like could be asay. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is no obligation. There is no asay at all. Now we're going to bring a brisa, the first brisa. We're going to ask, right? We're going to bring two brisas. Now we're going to bring in a brisa to ask on Rabbi Yehuda. So let's concentrate on the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who said it's not necessarily a requirement. It's only it's like a hecker, right? Well, Rabbi Yehuda, so he says, does Rabbi Yehuda have this far? Tani, we're going to brisa. Metzora, right? Now Metzora, now they have a purification process. For 7 days, the 8 days, they have to basically come to the by the entrance, right? And they have they perform the ceremony with the blood and the oil, right? Vatani Mitzara Taivel, the Aymed, Bishar Nikanor, right? The Mitzara, he's Taivel and he stands by Shar Nikanor, right? And Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Einot Sarich Tvila Shekvar Tava Mi Be'erev. Says Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't need to at all because he was ready Taivel the night before. So he doesn't, when he enters by Shar Nikanor, he does not need to go ahead and be Taivel. So wait, Rabbi Yehuda said that you really have to do it. Over here, you have to by the Kohen Gadol, right? The Kohen Gadol has to go ahead and be Taivel, right? And over here, he doesn't have to. So Gemara says, no, how could the Tani Tama over there? It says, to the reason, Shikvar Tavam Be'erev. The reason why he doesn't have to in the morning is because he did the night before. That's the reason why he doesn't have to do in the morning. So okay, so it was a good, obvious answer, right? Very, very pashut answer. So the one who asked the question, what was the Havamina? Why did he bring this brisa to ask? Oh, I got a kasha. It says Matzori doesn't do in the morning because he did the night before. Why doesn't he have to do in the morning? It said because he did the night before. So Mashum because he wanted to go ahead and bring another brisa, basically a contradiction on this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So what was this second brisa? So Lishkas HaMetzarin, right? The Lishka of the Metzarin. Once again, those of you that are the art scroll, and I'll just show the picture. That was number 12, right? It's a very large room. So here's the Shar Nikanor, right? Those of you can see. And then on top is the Lishkas HaMetzarin. This is the area of Lishkas HaMetzarin where we're talking about where they're going to be Taivel in there. Now, Lishkas HaMetzarin, the chamber of the Metzarin. Shesham Metzarim Taivel. Over there, the Metzaras would be Taivel, right? That was the Tanakama of the Bryce. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Loi Metzarim Bilvad Amru, Elo Kol Adam. Not only Metzarim would go there, but rather anybody who would enter, he would also go ahead and be Taivel there if he's going ahead and enter into the Mikdash. Now, so Rabbi Yehuda says in here, not only the Metzarim go to the mikveh there, right? So it sounds like the Metzarim have to go to the mikveh, but the other Bryce that we just brought 2 seconds ago said they didn't need to go to enter into the. They didn't need to go to the mikveh in the morning because they went for the night before. All right, so the answer is like cash, not a contradiction. Ha the tavel, ha the tavel. The one is the case where so let's go with the Pasha one, right? First answer you'd say is, the other one, the first Bryce, Rabbi Yehuda said because they were told the night before, that's what they don't do in the morning. And over here, they didn't do it at all. Therefore, they have to go ahead into the Lishkas HaMetzarim. So either like tavel, if they never dipped yesterday, now we have a rule when a person is obligated to go ahead and go to the mikvah. Right now, like we would go to the mikvah on Fridays or a person has halachic obligation, right? A chiv to go to the mikvah. So in addition to going to the mikvah, you don't become Torah right away. You need Harav Shemesh. You need the sun to go down. You need to go into the night. So he should have, if he goes to the mikvah that morning, he shouldn't be able to perform the final avoda for the mitzvah, and they should wait another day, right? So.
Saying if the Kohen has to do it, then he has to wait till after.
If a Kohen is not a chiyuv, but when it comes to the mitzvah, because he has to perform the mitzvah, he has requirements to do it. So therefore, all of a sudden, he has to he should have to go ahead and wait a day, right? Because he is coming from Tameh, right? He is Tameh, right? A Kohen Gadol is not Tameh when he's doing it. He just has to go to the mikvah, right? He's not removing tumah, right? But if one was removing tumah, right? Right, when a person goes in a day, or whatever it is, when one is removing tuma, then, or a person who's a zav, right, when he goes to the mikveh during the day and he has to wait till the night. So when you're removing tuma, then you have to wait till the night. Really, he did go to the mikvah yesterday, and now, as you know, yesterday evening, and now it was Herav Shemesh, and in the case of when he basically wasn't paying attention, wasn't watching himself, so therefore go ahead and go to the mikvah again. But if he was concentrating and he did not basically have any lapse of awareness, and he realized that he was tired all the time, then there is no requirement for going to the mikvah in the morning. So if he has complete a lack of awareness, then he should require more sprinkling, for the ashes, He should require more sprinkling, for in order for to become pure, right? So he says, Right? He says over there, person is das over there in the case of a person who's a tumas mace, right? When he did paraduma over there, a person is unaware. He needs to go ahead and be sprinkled on day 3 and day 7 again because he was unaware. Perhaps he gave tummy again. So okay, it must be that he did not have lack of awareness. One person, when he went at night, he says, okay, I'm doing this mikvah, and this is going to count for me, also be for the morning. And so that one says, okay, I'm going to be tayvel now in order to fill my obligation, being tayvel now, in order to have hair of shemesh. But tomorrow I'm going to be tayvel again. So since he didn't have in mind last night's tevilah, therefore, during the morning, he has to be tayvel again. Or Tani loy mitzarin amru ela ka'adam. Or you can go ahead and revise, right? The third brisa, when it says, Rabbi Yehuda says, lo mitzarin bilvat amru ela ka'adam. According to this text, we take out the word bilvat. In other words, we're not the first understanding is we're not only mitzarin, but all people. Over here, it's saying loy mitzarin. We're not talking about mitzarin. Ela ka'adam, rather ka'adam, because the mitzarin didn't have to go in the morning, right? Only the ka'adam. So therefore, it's not a contradiction. Rabbi Yehuda is the same that mitzarin are not required to go in the morning. And Ravina Omar. And Ravina says, Rabbi Yehuda the Rabbanan Kamrelu. He's talking to the Rabbanan according to their shittas. What is he saying? That D, according to me, Rabbi Yehuda, Mitzar and Sech Tefillah. Mitzar doesn't need Tefillah in the morning. However, but according to you guys, utterly easy miha. Delay Mitzar Bilvad Amru Ela Kol Adam. Right? Rather, you should go ahead and the mitzvah. It's not only Mitzar, but everybody should go ahead and be tayvel in the mikvah. Rabbanan and the Rabbanan say no. Why Mitzarin different than Kol Adam? Rabbanan Mitzarin Daish Betuma. Kol Adam Lai Daish Betuma. Mitzarin they are Tamei, right? Since they are Tamei, right? They had Saras, so therefore they were more accept in Tuma. Therefore they have a requirement, but Kol Adam they don't necessarily have that case. And finally, Amrle Abai Rav Yosef Nema Rabbanan. Let's say the Rabbanan of the second brisa. Now the second brisa was. Mitzara Taiva Ami B'Shar Nikanor. The Mitzara would stand at Ami B'Shar Nikanor. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Ein Tzarich Tvila Shekvar Taiva Miberev. Right. So the first bride said that the Mitzara they would be Taiva, and then they would stand in Shar Nikanor. Rabbi Yehuda said they don't need to go to the mikvah. So let's say name of the Rabbanan the Pligel Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say these Rabbanan Ben Zuma. They hold like Ben Zuma, who was the first argument we saw this morning. And Ben Zuma was the one who said that we learned from a Kavah Chaimer that the Kohen Gadol has to be Taiva in the morning. This is Sirilu. Right, the high diktani mitzara, and the reason why it says, in other words, really anybody has to go to the mikvah. And the reason, because anybody coming from the outside, coming to the inside, kal v'chomer, you should be required to be tayvel, because we know bein kodesh the kodesh kodashim requires tefillah. So if that's the case, if it's an obligation to everybody, so why did it say mitzaras? Right, the high diktani mitzara to teach you the extent of the position of Rabbi Yehuda that says even a mitzara. Right, doesn't require tefillah. Idilma, or perhaps he's saying shani mitzara the daish betuma, or maybe he's saying that no, by mitzara he's required to do it, but not shakar adam, and therefore it would not be like Ben Zuma. And Amalei shani mitzara the daish betuma. In other words, the Torah says no, that maybe over here was specifically talking about a mitzara. Mitzara has to go to the mikveh because they were tummy for 7 days, and this is the 8th day. But when it comes to a regular person, who says that this price is just like Ben Zuma, who holds it's a chiyuv because a person is coming from something which is not kodesh to an area which is kodesh, and that would require a tefillah. But who says this brisa would agree with that? Maybe this brisa is dafka talking about mitzvah because he's telling me about a shar adam. Maybe he doesn't have to go ahead and be tayvel. Fine, we'll stop here at the bottom. Shkoyach. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Shkoyach.
Shkoyach.